Have you ever looked at someone in your life and thought, why is this person still here? Why can't I let go of them? Do you think it's a coincidence? What if I told you that it wasn't you who kept them, nor even them who stayed, but Allah who placed them there, in a plan much grander than you can imagine? This doubt you feel, this confusion you carry, it's not a sign of failure. It may be a divine message you're still unaware of. Have you ever felt that strange weight? That silence that settles deep in your heart when you think about a person in your life? It's like a shadow that never really disappears. Even when you try to ignore it, even when you want to move on, it comes back. Not necessarily physically, but in your thoughts, in your memories, sometimes in your prayers. And you wonder, why can't I erase it? Why is it still there? You may have already said to yourself, it's over. This person is no longer part of my story. I've moved on. But deep down, a small voice persists. It whispers, what if you were wrong? What if this connection still has meaning? Then your heart fills with confusion. You doubt. You hesitate. You question Allah's plans because you see contradictory signs. On one hand, pain, hurt, misunderstandings. On the other, this presence that refuses to disappear completely. And then, you begin to believe you've misunderstood. You wonder if you're the one inventing things. You're the one hoping. You're the one refusing to accept reality. But think for a moment. What if this doubt itself isn't a coincidence? What if this doubt is actually a subtle reminder? A divine voice whispering, don't think this person is here by mistake. You don't decide everything. I place every soul on your path. Because you see, in life, there are two types of bonds. Those you choose, and those Allah chooses for you. The former are fragile, temporary, and easily broken as soon as your interest wanes. But the latter, they survive trials, distances, doubts. Even when you want to bury them, Allah resurrects them in one way or another. You feel this weight because your soul recognizes something your mind cannot explain. It recognizes that behind this connection lies an invisible wisdom. A wisdom you cannot yet grasp, but which exists, which breathes, which awaits its time. And Allah leaves you with this doubt, because it is in doubt that your heart reveals its truth. Are you only seeking your immediate comfort, or do you choose to trust a higher will that knows the rest of your story? Think about it. How many times in your life have you believed something was useless, only to discover later that it was the key to your growth? How many times have you rejected a challenge, only to realize later that without it, you would have remained stagnant? So why don't you believe that this person, the one weighing on your heart, is part of the same process? Perhaps they're the test you haven't yet deciphered. Perhaps they're the mirror of your own wounds. Perhaps they're the tool chosen by Allah to transform you, even if you don't understand how. What if your mistake wasn't having this person in your life, but doubting that Allah could have put them there for a reason? What if your doubt actually revealed your lack of confidence in the precision of the divine plan? Because you think you see clearly, but in truth, you only see a drop in the ocean. Look at your life like an immense fresco. You only have access to a few strokes, a few colors, and you're already judging the whole. But Allah sees the whole picture, from beginning to end. You think this person is a mistake in your drawing, but what if it's the essential feature that gives meaning to the final work? So breathe. Put aside fear. Put aside the scenarios you create in your mind. Tell yourself one thing. If this person is still here, despite everything you've been through, it's not a coincidence. It's scripture. It's a plan. And the doubt you feel today isn't there to push you away. It's there to bring you even closer to the one who holds your story in his hands. Imagine a young believer, Let's call him Yasin. For some time now, Yasin has felt lost. He prays at night. He raises his hands in tears. He asks Allah to show him the way. He doesn't want to make a mistake. He doesn't want to waste his energy on pointless relationships. So over and over again, he repeats the same request. "O Allah, guide me to what is good for me, keep away from me what is not." He believes he is sincere, and he is, but here's what troubles him. Every time he thinks he's moving on with a certain person, every time he says to himself, "It's over, I'm moving on," that person returns. Not always in a spectacular way. Sometimes an unexpected message. Sometimes a strange coincidence. Sometimes just a persistent thought that won't leave him. So Yasin gets angry with himself. He asks himself, why her again? Why not someone else? Am I lying to myself? Am I a prisoner of my emotions? He feels ashamed because he believes his faith is weak. He thinks that if he truly trusted in Allah, he would have forgotten by now. But what he doesn't know is that this repeated return isn't a weakness, nor is it just a coincidence. It's a sign he can't read. An invisible thread that divine will weaves into his story, even when he's fighting against himself. Look at him. Sometimes he distances himself completely. He says to himself, "It's over. I won't speak to her again." And for a few weeks, he finds a fragile peace. But suddenly, a completely unexpected circumstance brings him back to her. An unexpected encounter on the street. A memory triggered by a smell, a song, a phrase. And his heart begins to stir again. Is it weakness? Number. It is Allah who shows him that some souls are connected beyond what logic can explain. One evening, Yasin sits alone in his room. He talks to himself. Why can't I move on? I asked Allah to guide me. Or why does He leave me in this confusion? And what he doesn't understand is that the confusion itself is an answer. Allah doesn't show him a clear path because Yasin must learn to trust Him even in ambiguity. He wants simple, obvious and quick signs, but Allah wants to teach him patience, trust and surrender. And for that, He has chosen a very specific person. A person who acts like a mirror. A mirror that reflects his insecurities, his impatience, his need to control. Every time he meets this person, he believes it's them who disturbs his peace. In reality, it's Allah showing him his own heart. This person isn't just a face. She's a test, a school, a living lesson. Then Yasin begins to realize something. Perhaps this bond isn't destined to end according to his own calculations. Perhaps there is a greater wisdom, one that his limited vision cannot yet comprehend. And you, who are listening to these words, do you recognize something of your story in Yasin's? Have you ever had the feeling that Allah is constantly drawing you back to someone despite yourself? Have you ever felt that inner struggle between your desire for clarity and the reality of a plan that seems grander than your imagination? If so, then you know what Yasin is going through. You know what it means to be faced with a chapter you don't yet understand, but which refuses to close. What you need to understand is that this isn't always a sign of weakness. Sometimes, it's a sign that you're in the midst of your spiritual learning. You don't have to be ashamed of feeling this way, because even your inability to move on is part of the plan. Allah doesn't play with your heart, but He trains it, He educates it, He prepares it. And sometimes, He does this by keeping a person in your sight, a person who triggers in you everything you couldn't see before. You wanted simple answers, but Allah offers you training. You wanted a quick fix, but Allah offers you a slow transformation. So look at Yasin. Look at him in his room, his hands raised to the sky crying. He doesn't understand why his heart always returns to the same place. But what he doesn't know is that this repetition isn't an empty loop, it's a spiral that lifts him step by step towards a deeper trust. And you, perhaps you're Yasin. Perhaps your story is different, but your soul is in the same struggle. Perhaps you can't understand why Allah allows this person to enter your field of vision. But what you need to hear today is that none of this is accidental. What if this repeated return isn't a waste of time, but a sacred scripture, a discreet thread, a key you haven't yet turned? There are times when your heart can no longer bear the silence. Nights when you wake up with this question running through your head. Why is there Allah? Why me? Why this person? Your soul cries out. Your tears burn your face. And despite all your prayers, despite all your desire for clarity, you have no immediate answer. You look around you and see people who seem to be moving forward, happy, confident, at peace in their relationships. And you, there you are, waiting, uncertain, with this weight that refuses to leave you. Your heart screams, I want to understand. You want everything to be clear, simple and crystal clear. You want a sign that will instantly dispel all your doubts. But the truth is that Allah doesn't work that way. What you believe to be silence is actually a divine language. The veil He keeps before your eyes is not abandonment. It's a lesson. Because if He suddenly revealed everything, where would your trust be? Where would your abandonment be? Where would your faith in the invisible be? So Allah leaves you in this uncomfortable zone between light and dark. It's there that your soul learns to breathe differently. It's there that you discover that your heart was not only created to love a creature, but to love the Creator more than anything. And sometimes it's through this specific person that He gives you a taste of this lesson. Do you think this connection is only a source of pain? What if, in reality, it were a mirror? A mirror that shows you what you need to repair within yourself. Your impatience, your need for control, your inability to let go. Whenever you want immediate answers, Allah invites you to be patient. Whenever you want a path without obstacles, He invites you to walk confidently in uncertainty. What if this person wasn't the mistake you thought, but the key that unlocked a part of your soul you didn't yet know existed? Perhaps they awakened deep emotions within you that you had suppressed. Perhaps they revealed your weaknesses, your need for healing, your desire to be understood. Perhaps they broke you, but in that brokenness, Allah created the space to rebuild your heart differently. You see, souls aren't transformed in comfort. They're transformed in pain, in loss, in dark places. And sometimes, Allah chooses a person as the tool for this transformation. Not because they're perfect, not because they deserve an eternal role in your life, but because through them you discover a new version of yourself, closer to Him. Think of your heart as a home. Perhaps this person came in and turned everything upside down, broke walls, moved furniture, smashed windows. You were in pain, you screamed. You asked yourself, why all this chaos? But this chaos is sometimes necessary to reorganize the house of your soul, to purify it, to make it capable of welcoming a greater light. And in this process, Allah remains silent. Not because He has forgotten you, but because He is teaching you to walk in the dark with Him as your only source of light. What you are feeling is not a mistake. This person in your life is not a mistake. Perhaps they are the pain that awakens your true faith. Perhaps they are the trembling that breaks your excessive attachment to the things of this world. Perhaps they are the reminder that you control nothing, that everything is in Allah's hands. And that's why you don't yet have a definitive answer. Because if Allah immediately removed that person, you would remain the same. But by leaving them there, by letting yourself go through that doubt, that confusion, that pain, He's shaping you. So listen carefully. If your heart is screaming today, it's not a useless cry. It's a cry that's part of the process. It's Allah tearing away from you what's preventing you from completely surrendering to Him. And that person, even if you see them as a wound, may be the scalpel removing from your heart what should no longer be there. So don't think it's a punishment. It's an operation, a healing, a transformation. And you're in the middle of this operation, eyes closed, terrified, without understanding. But the one holding the instruments knows exactly what he's doing. Think of your existence as a huge puzzle. A puzzle so vast that even if you spent your whole life trying to complete it, you would only see a tiny part. Each person you meet is a piece. Some pieces fit together naturally. You understand their role immediately. A friend who lifts you up, an encounter that inspires you, a smile that saves you in a dark moment. You cherish these pieces because they are clear, obvious, beautiful to look at. But there are also other pieces, strange, distorted pieces that don't seem to fit. You hold them in your hand, you try to place them in your puzzle, but they don't fit anywhere. Then you wonder, why this piece? Why this person? They make no sense in my story. And you wonder if it's not a mistake, a flaw, a waste of time. But what you don't know is that Allah already holds the complete picture of the puzzle. He alone sees the whole picture. And sometimes, what seems like a useless piece today is actually the key that will give the whole picture its final meaning. Think of a mosaic. When you look at it too closely, all you see are irregular pebbles, colors that seem mismatched. You think, this is chaotic. It doesn't look like anything. But when you step back, when you look at the whole picture, you realize that each pebble had its precise place. Even the one that seemed dark, even the one that appeared broken. Your life is exactly like that. The people you want to erase, the ones who broke you, the ones who perplex you, they aren't there by accident. They are fragments of a design that is bigger than you. You think their role is over, but in reality, their trace, their imprint, their influence are inscribed in your destiny, like colors that you alone cannot erase. Imagine your heart like a book written in calligraphy. Some letters are elegant, soft. You read them with joy. But others are rough, complicated. You would like to erase them. And yet, if you erased these letters, the entire sentence would lose its meaning. The beauty of a text lies in the coherence of all its letters, not just those you find pretty. It's the same with the people Allah places in your life. Some are obvious blessings, and you thank Allah for them. But others are hidden blessings, blessings disguised as trials. You reject these at first because they hurt, because they bother you, because they highlight what you want to hide. But without them, your story would be incomplete. You know what's fascinating? Sometimes, you only understand the value of a piece at the very end. A relationship that caused you pain can become the cause of your return to Allah. A face you wanted to forget can remain etched as an eternal reminder of what you've learned. And a person you thought insignificant may have changed your path irreversibly. Look around you. Everything in creation works this way. The stars you see in the sky, isolated, they are only points of light. But connected together, they form constellations that guide travelers. Your life is a constellation. And each person is a star. whether they shine brightly or barely twinkle. Without one of them, your inner sky would be different. So when you doubt that person who never leaves your heart, remember, you only see a fragment. Allah sees the final masterpiece. You think it's one piece too many, but maybe it's precisely the piece that completes the circle, the piece without which everything collapses. What if you looked at your life like a tapestry? Up close, you see only tangled threads, knots, colors that seem to contradict each other. But if you could observe the reverse side of the fabric from Allah's perspective, you would discover a perfect design, a harmony you could never have imagined. These threads that hurt you today, these knots that you find ugly, are not mistakes. They are the structure that holds the work together. Yes, your heart doubts. Yes, you want to understand, but remember, your role is not to understand everything. Your role is to continue putting the pieces together, with patience, with trust, even when they seem distorted. Because Allah, does not make mistakes. And sometimes, what you reject today will be what you bless tomorrow. Sometimes, what you call pain today will be what you call healing tomorrow. And sometimes, that person you wanted to erase will be precisely the piece that will make you understand why Allah wrote your story this way. So tell me, what if this person you want to erase from your history isn't your obstacle, but your mirror? Yes, your mirror. A mirror doesn't show you what you want to see, but what you really are. And sometimes, what you see hurts. Perhaps this person reflects your unhealed wounds, your impatience, your pride. Perhaps they reflect back to you the image of a heart that hasn't yet learned to fully free itself for Allah. So why are you running away from this mirror? Isn't it precisely through it that you can finally understand who you truly are? What if this complicated bond isn't a mistake, but a secret school for your soul? Think about it. You've studied in classes. You've had teachers, you've taken courses. But did you know that relationships are also invisible classrooms? Every connection you experience is a classroom where Allah teaches you a specific lesson. Some classes are joyful, others painful, but all are necessary. So ask yourself, what lesson has this person come to teach you? Have you ever tried to see them as a teacher sent by Allah and not as an unnecessary burden? What if your doubt weren't a sign of a failure, but the ultimate test that determines how far you trust your Lord? You may believe that your doubt proves your weakness. But think, surely, without confusion, you would have truly learned to raise your hands and say, "Oh Allah, I don't understand, but I rely on you." Your doubt is not the end of your faith. It is the raw material with which Allah builds your faith. So why do you see it as poison when it may be the medicine you still refuse to swallow? Why would you want to erase what Allah has chosen to inscribe? Ask yourself this question seriously. Isn't your desire to forget actually a struggle against the will of the one who created you? You want to control your story. You want to choose your characters. You want to write your script. But since when have you been the author? If Allah inscribed this link in your book, do you really believe you have the right to tear out the page? Tell me, what if what you call a waste of time was actually an indispensable step in your journey? What if this pain, instead of being a punishment, was preparation? What if this person, whom you see as a weakness, was the key to your future strength? Have you considered that perhaps Allah doesn't want you to understand right away? Because if He revealed the reason now, you wouldn't learn anything. But by removing the veil, He forces you to walk by faith, not by vision. And this is how your soul grows. And you, how many times have you believed a chapter was useless, only to later discover that it was the one that shaped you the most profoundly? How many times have you wanted to erase someone from your past, only to realize that without them, you would never have known certain truths? So why do you think this chapter would be different? Ask yourself again, what if this person you can't forget isn't a burden, but a constant reminder that your heart is never safe unless it rests with Allah? What if their role isn't to be by your side forever, but to be the spark that ignites your spiritual transformation? What if their goal isn't to love you as you hope, but to awaken you where you were spiritually asleep? Do you see now why Allah still keeps them within your horizon? Not to humiliate you, not to crush you, but to show you how far you are willing to trust Him. So I ask you again, why would you want to erase what Allah has chosen to record? Why pretend to know better than Him what should remain and what should disappear? Why try to tear a page from your book, when it is precisely this page that will give meaning to the next chapter? What if this confusion you hate today was a sign that Allah is leading you to a wisdom you would never have achieved alone?
You sometimes think you know what's good for you. You sometimes think your limited perspective, your unstable emotions, your wounded heart are enough to discern the truth. But you see a drop when Allah sees the ocean. You see a fragment when Allah holds the whole. And that's your mistake. You confuse your desire with the truth. You think you know who deserves your place and who doesn't. You say, that person made me suffer. They no longer have a place in my story. You say, I'm better off without them. I'm stronger without them. But who gave you the authority to decide that? Are you the author of your destiny, or the one who wrote your name before you were even born? You want to choose and erase as if your story belonged to you. But every breath you take, every beat of your heart, every step you take is already written by Him. So why do you believe this person is a mistake? Why do you believe their role in your life is beyond Allah's wisdom? Listen carefully. This person, even in their silences, even in their absences, even in their contradictions, is part of the plan. Not a plan you control, not a plan you understand, but a plan beyond you. And you doubt. You ask yourself, why is Allah imposing this on me? Why doesn't He take away this pain? But what if this pain were precisely the tool He uses to polish your soul? What if this lack, this emptiness, this confusion were the forge in which He shapes you? You don't understand. You ask Allah to purify you, but you refuse the instrument of this purification. You want solid faith without being tested. You want certainty without doubt. You want growth without being broken. But tell me, where have you seen that gold becomes pure without going through fire? Your doubt cries out, what if I was wrong? What if this person isn't meant for me? But your doubt overlooks one truth. Allah never doubts. He makes no mistakes. He leaves nothing to chance. Even the steps of those around you are guided by His hand. You see a person who goes away and comes back. He sees a soul placed on your horizon to awaken parts of you that were sleeping. You see a waste of time. He sees a school for your heart. You see a contradiction. He sees a balance you don't yet understand. You think you know what you want. But how many times have you desired something that, once obtained, broke you even more? How many times have you run away from a trial that, had you endured it, would have elevated you? So why do you continue to believe that your fragile judgment is worth more than Allah's infinite knowledge? Listen to the truth you dare not face. This person is part of the plan, not because they're perfect, not because they're destined in the romantic sense you imagine, but because Allah chose them as a tool that, consciously or not, sculpts your soul, shatters your pride, tests your patience, and reveals your true attachment. You may doubt, but Allah never doubts. You may hesitate, but He's firm in His decision. You may want to run away, but you never stray from His will. So ask yourself, is your problem this person? Or is it your refusal to accept that your story is not your own? Is your struggle against her?
Or is it against the reality that Allah writes every chapter, even those you never wanted to experience? Yes, you're in pain. Yes, you have questions. Yes, you want to erase everything. But if Allah still leaves her on your horizon, it's because her role is not over. Not in your eyes, but in His. You think it's a mistake, but it's a piece of the puzzle. You think it's a stain, but it's a stroke of divine calligraphy. You think it's a loss, but it's a seed growing silently. And one day, when you see the complete picture, when you understand what your gaze refused to admit, you will realize that nothing, absolutely nothing, was left to chance. Not even this person, not even your doubts. So the next time your heart sinks and your thoughts ask, why this person? Remember, nothing, absolutely nothing, is outside of Allah's plan. You are not alone in your questioning, and every doubt can become a door to a deeper faith. If this message touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who is going through the same uncertainties, and subscribe to continue receiving reminders that speak directly to your soul.